how many times do we have to go through this? You're black, you can play bass.
I'm getting sick of your stereotypes.
Be as sick as you want, just give me a goddamn bass line!
God damn it.
So for tonight's video, I'm going to be talking about tokenism and the idea of forced diversity in media, and I'm not going to be talking about affirmative action or anything that's like related to the real world. I'm going to be mainly talking about media and the representation that we see of mainly black women, but also I will be discussing a couple of other minorities that we see in shows. And I've had this going through my head for quite some time now, because whenever I watch shows on Netflix, I always like get the sense that the characters are so forced, because the only thing that we really see from them is like that they're there mainly to advance the plot for the main character, and they usually don't have storylines of their own. And it's like you can just tell when a character is forced. Like, you just look at the character and it's like, I know you weren't meant to be here. Like, I know a person of color did not write your character, because this is not how people of color actually sound.
I'm a number. I am the 327th baby of a black woman who died during childbirth that year. I'm a $20 a day check to a group home. I'm inmate 40757, 18 months for...
Obviously, let's start with the notion of representation. Representation is extremely important in films and in media, because it's important for people to see themselves represented in the movies that they watch. Because first of all, representation is going to make people go watch movies more, instead of if it's just like all white cast, especially in today's climate, political climate, where everything is like super political justicey and everything is super politically correct. People are obviously going to want to go see movies with more diverse characters if the characters are written and done properly. If the characters are there and they just seem fake and they just seem forced, and the dialogue is just weird, and like everything is just off, like the feng shui of the show is just off, obviously no one is gonna go watch the show. But people just feel like if you just like throw a minority into a show, it's just like, okay, whatever, now the minorities are just gonna shut up because they have this one person that's there to represent the whole race, and the representations are usually not even accurate. So representation is obviously an extremely important concept. For me, like, I would say representation did change my life. I'm a bit dramatic, okay, so I'm saying it changed my life, but like low-key it did. The main show that I can thank for the person that I am today in terms of representation is Scandal. Scandal had a huge impact on my life. Like, seriously, like, that show I still love it today, but the first time I saw it, I think I was 14. And I started watching Scandal, and I just wanted to be Olivia Pope, because I just felt like, although she was a Jezebel...
Who said that? Who said that? Ooh.
So representation is an extremely important concept, because it helps people develop who they are, and it's important for people to see themselves represented in shows that they watch, because it can inspire them to become things that they don't think that they can do in their everyday lives, because they see people that look like them actually partaking and doing stuff. Like, for example, if there are little black girls who want to be doctors and they see themselves represented in Grey's Anatomy, which I do not watch, so I don't know if there are black characters, but I think there's one black guy, but I don't know if there are black... Actually, no. There's another black woman I just remembered, but I don't watch Grey's Anatomy, so I don't really know. But if they see themselves represented in these shows and in these characters and in these roles, obviously it's going to motivate them to pursue these passions in the real world. So it's really important to see yourself represented. And it's also important for people who are not minorities to see minorities represented in a positive light, because then it can get rid of a lot of misconceptions that different races have, and they can get along instead of seeing negative representations of black people all the time. I'm kind of over those whole like black struggle stories. Like, I really do not care to see it. Like, if I'm seeing videos of George Floyd in reality, like, I saw the video of George Floyd, why do I need to see The Hate You Give? What is political correctness? I'm pretty sure that everyone knows what political correctness is. If you guys don't know the definition, I will tell you the definition right now. So it's the avoidance often considered as taken to extremes of forms of expression or action that are perceived to exclude, marginalize, or insult groups of people who are socially disadvantaged or discriminated against. So maybe I just told you the definition, but if you didn't know the definition of political correctness before, you probably could sense it, because I personally feel like PC culture is extremely toxic, just like cancel culture, because at this point you literally cannot say anything without offending people, and that is why people feel the need to force diversity into media, because they think that this is what minorities want to see. I'll give a quick example. The Bachelor, like, this is the first time in my life that I'm watching it, and it is performative because of all the protests and everything. They felt the need to include this type of diversity in their shows. So that is kind of PC culture, because you're kind of imposing diversity in places that, like, diversity is needed, but sometimes it isn't needed. So for The Bachelor, I'm kind of in between. Like, I don't necessarily like have a problem with it, because I'm like addicted to the show at this point, but at the same time it's like it wasn't needed, and the only reason that they're doing it is because they feel the pressure to do it. Diversity is only good when it's authentic, when it's genuine. Diversity is only good when it's genuine, and when people actually put efforts into learning about minorities, and not when they force it because they think that that is what people want to see. With PC culture, I feel like political correctness is forcing a lot of these characters, and it's forcing a lot of these minorities, and producers and directors, they just feel like they need to put out something that's gonna appease people, and they're not putting out genuine representations of minorities, so then it can just seem super disingenuous and just really fake. And it's like, I'd rather honestly no diversity instead of seeing like misrepresentation of minorities in films. Like, I'd rather just watch an all-white cast. Like, I've been doing that. Like, I would just keep doing it. Like, I don't care. Like, at this point, I'm so tired of like this forced wokeness that is always in these shows, how they always have to have like super female empowerment, and it's not even like genuine female empowerment.
I don't know how you're gonna get us through all that.
Don't worry.
She's got help.
The definition of tokenism is the practice of making only a perfunctory or symbolic effort to do a particular thing, especially by recruiting a small number of people from underrepresented groups in order to give the appearance of sexual or racial equality within a workforce, or in the case that I'm talking about, which is the media. So tokenism is essentially when you have that one black friend in your all white friend group, or when you have that one gay best friend, which I don't think is a thing anymore. I hope it's not a thing, because it's kind of weird at this point. Tokenism in movies is when they have that one black character that is simply there to give advice and doesn't really have a plot line of their own, but it's basically forcing diversity, and it's like, oh, I'm just gonna throw in this one minority character just to make everyone feel better, so they can just shut the hell up and go on about their day. Like, you know, it's really not hard to be diverse. Like, it really isn't. You just write characters and then you cast them. For me, good portrayals of diversity is when the characters are simply diverse and they don't allude to the fact that they're diverse. They're simply characters. They just live their lives. They're normal people, and they don't always have to say, hey, I'm black, or hey, I'm here. Like,
You want to know why I haven't paid my fines? Because I can't find a job. Because I don't have a home. Because no landlord wants to rent to an ex-con on post-release. You see how this works? No one cares that the dope wasn't mine, or that the crows were dirty, or
it's not like a big statement that the character is diverse. It's just a diverse character. Like, that's really all there is to it. Like, so many shows that just seem extremely forced, and they try to be extremely woke, when it's just like, you don't need to be woke. Just make a show that's gonna entertain me. Like, I see the politics of the world. I don't need a show that's gonna constantly shove down feminist propaganda or constantly shoving down racial propaganda down my throat. Like, I don't need that. Like, so now I'm just gonna give a couple of good examples of diversity that I do not believe are forced. Firstly, Grand Army, which I watched a couple of weeks ago. I think I watched it like 2 weeks ago. Honestly, like, so good, and it really reminded me of Degrassi, and I grew up watching Degrassi on Much Music like every day. Like, I would literally binge that shit, and Grand Army really reminded me of Degrassi, and I really hope that that show continues for a lot of years, because that's the type of show that can continue for a lot of years. And I literally just realized that Degrassi ended like After I watched Grand Army, I looked at Degrassi and I realized that it ended like 3 years ago, and I've been waiting for a season, like a new season, for 3 years.
Are you not ashamed of yourself? Are you not embarrassed? This is really embarrassing.
So Grand Army was marvelous. Like the representation, everything, it just felt super authentic. I can't say that word. It felt super genuine, and it felt like actual high schoolers, and the diversity was just like, it was perfect for me. Like the black characters weren't forced, you know, they actually had storylines and we actually got to know them, and it wasn't like, oh, like here's your black people. Another show is obviously Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder. How to Get Away with Murder. Why can't I say my R's today? This is really weird. But Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder, but obviously it's written by black women, so it's going to be more diverse. I have not seen Bridgerton, and I do not plan on watching it because it doesn't look interesting. And another show that I absolutely loved and adored, but Netflix canceled it because Netflix just loves to cancel shows, was Sense8. Sense8 was honestly one of the best shows that I've ever seen. The cast was literally perfect. It was like super diverse, and not to mention sexual diversity was really represented in that show, but like for some reason Netflix canceled it. Let's talk about some bad representations of diversity. I said a couple of good ones, now some bad ones. So bad representations, what I hate is when they do race reboots or gender reboots. It makes absolutely no sense, because if a show is good, if a movie's already good, why do you feel the need to remake it? First of all, why do you feel the need to remake it? And why do you feel the need to switch the cast to an all-woman cast or an all-black cast? Like, do you really think that's what we want to see? Like, I couldn't care less if a cast was all female. Like, it's all men and it could be shit. You can have a movie that's all women and it could be shit. Like, I'm looking at the storyline and I don't understand why you feel like putting all women is gonna make it more of an interesting story. Like, but definitely race reboots is something that I really hate to see. Like, it's just so stupid. So one that I looked up was Batwoman. So I'm currently editing, and I also wanted to say that they actually ended up canceling Black Lightning, which is a show that I really enjoyed, and it was a really fun experience to watch it. And I didn't even know they canceled it, but they did cancel it. I don't know why I'm so late to cancellations, but I just am. So you have a show like Black Lightning, which I thought was genuinely a really interesting storyline. It was a good show with good diversity, and it was also a woke show because it explained things in a way that made sense because the cast was fighting for justice. It wasn't like a show that's like about I don't know, like just some random show that has nothing to do with social justice and they're talking about social justice. Like Black Lightning was actually about social justice and they were speaking on it, which made a lot of sense. So in that context, that's when I do enjoy like wokeness. But you have a show like Black Lightning, which I really loved, that was doing well with a black cast, and you cancel it only to reboot a show like Batwoman with a black Batwoman. Like, it makes absolutely no sense because I'd rather see Black Lightning, which is actually a black superhero, than Batwoman, who is a white woman redisguised as a black woman. It makes absolutely no sense, especially considering the fact that there are so many black superheroes that could be casted for films and for TV shows. Instead of doing that, people are recasting Batwoman into a black woman because they believe that's going to appease the masses and it's what minorities want. At least in my case, I personally do here because I don't want to see a black Batwoman. I just want to see a woman who is a superhero who is already black. And there's a black James Bond character who's a woman, which makes no sense. I don't really care to see it. Like, I don't understand why I would be excited for a black woman James Bond. Just make a new character who is a black woman who's a spy. And then the last race reboot was Ariel, which I don't know when that is coming out, but that one as well, I didn't feel like it needed to be rebooted for a black woman. Like, I don't see the point of that. Just need to have more people of color in the writing rooms who are writing these characters and who understands what it means to be a minority and how it feels to be a minority, so that these characters can be more authentic. And it's not like the show, I'll talk about my unpopular opinion after, but like when you can include diversity, I don't see why it would be a bad thing, because it's only going to enrich the show and it's going to make more people want to watch the show because they see themselves represented in the show. So I don't see how diversity can be seen as a bad thing, as long as it isn't forced and performatory. And my last statement that I wanted to make was my unpopular opinion, which is that not every show needs to be diverse. And I think I already said this. If a show is like Sons of Anarchy, which I watched and I loved it. If a show, there's a show like Sons of Anarchy where it's like a biker gang and biker gangs are like known for being racist. But like shows like that or like Breaking Bad, I honestly don't mind if it's not diverse, as long as the story is strong enough to uphold the fact that there isn't diversity in the show. But if the show is like a shit show and it's like you're forcing diversity, it's just like, what's happening, you know? So anyways, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in terms of forced diversity. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in my next video.
You see, Token, people really enjoy seeing African Americans on the news. Seeing African Americans on the news, not hearing them. That's why all African American news people learn to talk more, how should I say, white.
No tornadoes, Eric, but interestingly enough, there is a low-pressure storm moving in over the Park County Valley. Should bring us some chilly days.